SLT අලුත් මෙගා ලයින් කනෙක්ෂන් වලට 50%ක දීවන. තවත් ඔෆර් ගැන දැනගන්න 12112 අමතන්න.
Tonight, woes of debt. Former central bank governor critical of the government's inaction to tackle the mounting crisis.
In order to get us out of that situation, Sri Lanka will have to increase its growth, but this government is struggling at 2%.
Passing the ball. The Engineers Association of the Ceylon Electricity Board only claims 50% responsibility over the power crisis. One-sided publication. Planters Association of Ceylon hits back at the Reuters report, which painted a bleak picture of the country's estate sector. Combating a menace. President's illicit drug eradication program takes another step forward. All that and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday, the 3rd of April 2019.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Kanayaka. Now, two foreigners got into hot water today after they pranced about clad in traditional Kandyan attire in Kandy of all places. We'll be bringing you the details later on in the bulletin. But first up is this particular story, which is the brainchild of President Maithripala Sirisena. Now, the head of state has long been a staunch detractor of drug use within the country and has launched various programs geared to decimate the drug menace in the island. Another step in this endeavour was worked off today under the title Bak Maha Diuruma. It is a pledge to create a drug-free country and was worked off across the island, with the national event being conducted in Colombo. Sri Lanka police, under the instructions of President Maithripala Sirisena, launched a crackdown on illicit narcotics across the country, and hauls of drugs along with traffickers were taken into custody. As another step in the program, around 770 kilograms of seized cocaine were destroyed last Monday. In line with this drug eradication program, the campaign titled Bak Maha Diuruma, a pledge to create a country which is free of illicit narcotics, was worked off in Colombo today under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena at the Independence Square, with the participation of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, Speaker Karu Jayasuriya, ministers as well as other members of Parliament.
As we've been keeping on reminding you, it is our responsibility as one nation.
Under the pledge, a commitment was made to make the country free of illicit drugs for the future generation and to successfully conduct and to accomplish a drug prevention program. The pledge also included commitments to take measures to shun drugs as individuals, as well as to give utmost contribution for the great collective efforts to free the Sri Lankan public from the drug menace. In the meantime, other programs to make the pledge were organised across the country, such as at schools, state institutions and other places of work.
නිර්මල වූ ජාතික සංස්කෘතික අනන්‍යතාවයකින් හෙබි
මගේ සහෝදරයින්ද මිතුරු මිතුරියන්ද
Meanwhile, President Maithripala Sirisena once more emphasised that law will be strictly implemented against drug traffickers and drug users. The President announced his stance at a discussion held relating to the draft legislation on drug eradication at the Presidential Secretariat today. The head of state also instructed Minister of Justice Talatata Korala to conduct a program which ensures swift action against those who are guilty of drug-related offences. The two suspects were deported from Dubai and arrested by the officials of the Criminal Investigations Department during the early hours of yesterday were released following lengthy interrogations today. Dubai police arrested drug kingpin Markandre Madhush and 30 others, including several prominent underworld figures and a popular Sri Lankan singer, at a party which involved drugs on the 5th of February. Following the investigations, Dubai police deported 8 persons arrested along with Markandre Madhush, with Mohammed Siddiq Mohammed Shyam and Veerasinghage Lankas Sajid Pereira being the latest deportees. Meanwhile, the brother of Mohammed Shyam, who was present for the suspects released just after midnight, obstructed the duty of a journalist present at the scene. In the meantime, Lankas Sajid Pereira, the other suspect, was released by the Negombo Magistrates Court on a surety of 200,000 rupees. However, the magistrate ordered the suspect to appear before the Madra Magistrates Court as he is wanted in connection with several crimes. Former Central Bank Governor Ajit Nivard Cabral places stabilising the rupee among the required measures to address the Sri Lanka's mounting debt crisis. He, however, is insistent that the rupee must be stabilised without restricting economic activity, as the number of people also depend on imports. While addressing a media briefing convened by Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna today, the former Central Bank Governor also lamented the country's slow economic growth.
And in 2018, because of the fact that the rupee depreciated by as much as rupees 30 during that year, we see that the total debt stock would have increased by at least 800 billion rupees. Due to the increase in the rupee value, all the interest rates went up. The AWPLR, which was just 6.3% at the end of 2014, increased to 12.1% by the end of 2018. That means based on that rate will be all the other rates. So the country's borrowers all have to pay this additional price because of the fact that this government went and mismanaged the economy so badly. In addition, all the foreign interest payments with regard to the international bonds have to be now increased, and they have borrowed every single international sovereign bond at a higher rate than what was prevailing in 2014. Some as much as 1.975%. And when you translate that into rupees and cents and then dollars, we find that the country had to suffer an additional 151 billion rupees. Total increase in the debt stock due to the depreciation of the currency is 1,497 billion rupees. The increase in interest as a result of the bond scam is 145 billion rupees. The increase in the amount that has to be allocated this year by way of monies to be voted for the interest payments, on the words of the Prime Minister himself that it is $5.6 billion, is 280 billion rupees. Then additional amount that has to be paid by way of interest as far as the sovereign bonds are concerned is another 151 billion. So totaling up to 2,073 billion rupees. In order to get us out of that situation, Sri Lanka will have to increase its growth to at least 6.5%, but this government is struggling at 2%. The country will have to stop new borrowings in foreign currency. If at all, if they are borrowing foreign currency, they will have to borrow only to repay the current debt and to grow the economy as quickly as possible so that they will be in a position to have new additional movement of foreign investment flows. Interest rate has to be brought down as fast as possible, and the rupee will have to be stabilized without restricting economic activity. If you restrict economic activity, you can make the rupee appreciate, which is what they are doing now. That is not going to help because there is a large number of people who are basing their economic activities on imports as well. I don't see any one of those things being done by the current government.
Now, tea production is one of the main sources of foreign exchange for Sri Lanka, with the island nation being the world's third largest, or biggest rather, tea exporter behind China and India, earning $1.4 billion just last year. However, an expose by the Thomson Reuters Foundation last week claimed of labour abuse in some of Sri Lanka's tea estates, raising series of questions of fair and ethical practices in the production of the world's most preferred and acclaimed tea brand, Ceylon tea. The investigation revealed illegal wage deductions, which left some workers ill and unable to even afford healthcare. Following this concerning report, investigations were also launched. However, the Planters Association of Ceylon came forward to defend registered plantation companies while categorically denying each of these allegations. The association accused that no comment was sought from it prior to the publication of the article in question.
Plantations in Sri Lanka that supply tea stamped slavery-free to top global companies are under investigation by ethical label groups after an expose found illegal wage deductions that have left some workers ill and unable to afford healthcare. The investigation by Thomson Reuters Foundation found some workers at tea estates in Sri Lanka, certified by Rainforest Alliance and Fairtrade, taking home as little as 14 US cents a day after fees and deductions levied without consent. Reuters said that wage slips from 17 workers at 9 Rainforest-certified tea estates, 6 of which were also backed by Fairtrade, showed daily earnings widely being cut by more than 3/4 for debt repayments, salary advances and a laundry list of fees. According to these pay slips, workers at fair trade certified estates were subject to 75% wage deductions on average, while those at Rainforest Alliance-backed estates saw 65% taken away. Rainforest Alliance and Fair Trade had both said they were investigating the findings, as deducting wages without workers' consent was not allowed by law and contravened their standards. A Fair Trade spokeswoman was quoted saying that the allegations, if confirmed, represent serious violations of the Fair Trade standard and that the group's independent certifier FlowCert would follow up on the findings. The Planters Association of Ceylon, however, moved to counter these claims today, categorically denying each one of the allegations. An official statement issued by the Planters Association pointed to serious factual misrepresentations and inaccuracies in this article titled "Tea Label Giants Vow Probe After Sri Lanka Labour Abuse Expose." Responding to the allegations that estate workers were unable to afford healthcare, the Planters Association said there are 61 hospitals, 323 dispensaries, 1,474 child development centres with fully qualified, trained and competent child development officers and support staff across 13 districts of Sri Lanka to ensure the well-being of the estate workers. They, along with a plantation family welfare staff cadre of 400, cares for 250,000 families with a total population of 1 million residents in 453 RPC estates in these districts. While highlighting that every Sri Lankan citizen has equal entitlement to free healthcare at any government hospital, the association went on to say that registered plantation companies themselves have managed healthcare for their employees. The Planters Association also responded to the allegations that employee wages are deducted without authorization, calling it an impossible and illegal task. The association said every deduction made against an employee's salary is carried out purely on the request of the employee, along with written employee permission that is produced before the Assistant Commissioner of Labour. In practice, requests for salary advances are typically made by employees for their recurring expenses. The reasons for such advances are stated on the employee's wage slip for the month, representing foodstuff advances, donations to places of worship and other voluntary obligations, such as settlement of easy payment loans on common electronic items, such as televisions, which the employees obtain in their personal capacity. The Planters Association clarified that in the event unauthorized and illegal deductions are made above 50% against an employee's salary, as the expose claims, the employee has several options to file a grievance against the management through their estate trade union representative, regional trade union representative, or directly with the Assistant Commissioner of Labour in the region. The association emphasizes that RPC plantation workers get fully secured, guaranteed lifetime family employment with the mandatory 300 days of work per year from the age of 18 to 60 years until retirement. RPC workers are also paid EPF, ETF, gratuity, 20 days paid holidays per year, 14 days paid sick leave per year, attendance bonus, profit share, maternity benefits, 3 months fully paid maternity leave, free maternal and childcare on the estate itself from conception to 5 years, allowances of milk powder, flour and rice, free issue of medicine, vaccinations and vitamins, total custodial childcare on estate account from 3 months to 5 years, and all vaccinations from birth up to 5 years for children on the estate itself, with paid leave granted for mothers. The Plantation Association claims that what is most obviously ignored in the article is the fact that although RPCs care for a resident population close to 1 million people on the estate, only around 145,000 workers actually contribute their labour to the estates, and that the RPCs have to provide facilities and care for 6 additional non-working souls for every worker. It also highlighted that Sri Lanka continues to pay the highest daily wage rate to its tea pluckers, even in terms of US dollar value at $4.6 per day, whereas even today, other tea economies are paying closer to 2.5 per US dollars a day, despite Sri Lanka's tea harvest output is only 18 kilos per day compared to the more than 30 kilos output per day in other economies.
Now moving on to the prevalent power crisis. As we know, the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court yesterday ordered the Ceylon Electricity Board to appear before court on the 9th of this month over legal action filed by the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. PUCSL says that regular rotational power interruptions took place without prior notice from the 18th of March across various parts of the country. It is in this backdrop that the Ceylon Electricity Board Engineers Union said that the PUCSL must take 50% of the responsibility over the prevailing crisis. We had a plan to establish power plants across a period of 20 years, which gets updated every 2 years. But this plan was never implemented because there is the involvement of mafia behind this. The problem between the CEB and the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka was created because of this very issue. The PUCSL must take 50% of the responsibility for not being able to add power stations to the national grid from 2014. The Public Utilities Commission stands for various parties in which there are prominent politicians and businessmen. There is a group of extremely corrupt officials within the commission. Meanwhile, CEB General Employees Union accuses the engineers of the Ceylon Electricity Board for the current power crisis. The CEB had and already have the methods and ways to get these 300 megawatts of power that the national grid is currently lacking. There are many state institutions which could run by generators, and these generate 2,000 megawatts of electricity altogether. We can easily address the problem of 300 megawatts by getting at least 500 megawatts from these generators. This is a country which has solar power for 12 hours a day. They even started the community-based power generation project named Surya Bala Sangramaya that couldn't even generate 600 megawatts. There is a 300 megawatt wind power plant in Manor alone. Why won't they think of these alternatives? It takes 5 years to establish a coal power plant and possibly more if we wait for environmental assessment reports. LNG power plants are much more environmentally friendly, but they wouldn't construct those. I personally know that there is a proposed plan to construct a 500 megawatt LNG power plant which has had the approval of the Cabinet as well as the Attorney General's Department. They're keeping the document at the office of the CEB without sending it to the PUCSL. They had delayed the implementation of the plan by 10 years. Today is the 17th day of the 19 allotted days for the committee stage debate on the appropriation bill for the year, and the budget for 3 ministries were taken up for debate. Accordingly, expenditure heads of the Ministry of Postal Services and Muslim Religious Affairs, Ministry of Plantation Industries and Ministry of Hill Country, New Villages, Infrastructure and Community Development were debated. Meanwhile, a supplementary estimate was submitted by Minister Lakshman Kirela in Parliament to cover several expenditure heads of ministries of Internal and Home Affairs and Provincial Councils and Local Government, as well as Megapolis and Western Development. Expenditure heads of those ministries were defeated on the 28th of last month.
So I present the papers submitted by the Honourable Minister of Finance. I present supplementary estimates 1 to 31.
Thank you. The Ministry of Hill Country, New Villages, Infrastructure and Community Development is a ministry which represents the entire Tamil community in the country. However, not a single government official is here to witness the debate. Therefore, it is fair for the public to criticise this government. The Minister and the Deputy Minister are here, but not the Ministerial Secretary or any other official. I suggest launching an investigation on this. There is an issue where sugar is mixed with tea leaves. We drink tea with sugar, but that is not the case. Factory owners mix sugar with tea leaves to increase the weight. The relevant method of punishment is also an issue, since the punishment is decided by the minister. According to that, some will be punished and some won't. We suspend such factory owners for a period of 3 months or 1 month. Otherwise, a huge fine is given as agreed by the minister and the tea board. However, we have warned factory owners that they will be punished if the sugar level surpasses the stipulated level. Mixing sugar with tea leaves brings a black mark on our country, and this should be stopped very soon. This is a crime, and it had never happened throughout history. Opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa says that even the government now accepts the importance of the Hambantota port. The construction of the port was launched during opposition leader Rajapaksa's tenure as president, with the port now being occupied by China Harbour Engineering Company on a 99-year lease initiated by the current government. The opposition leader touched on the topic today while addressing an event in Hambantota. Some are jealous about the Hambantota district today. There is a port and the roads are well made, although some ask whether the roads are used to dry paddy. There are expressways, an airport and international conference halls. This district is undergoing development. The leaders elaborated on the advantages of the Hambantota port when they came to lay a foundation stone recently. Our duty is to develop this area under a prudent, long-lasting plan which runs for centuries. Colombo Fort Magistrate Ranga Disanayake today fixed further inquiries into the case filed against former Navy Commander and Chief of Defence Staff Admiral Ravindra Vijay Gunaratne for the 17th of July. It relates to allegations of aiding and abetting former Navy Lieutenant Commander Chandana Prasad Hettiarachchi to hide inside the Navy headquarters, preventing his arrest. CID informed court today that they had enough evidence to prove allegations against the former Navy Commander when the case against him and businessman Laksiri Amarasinghe was taken up. CID also told court that the former Navy Commander had also given 500,000 rupees to former Lieutenant Commander Hettiarachchi from one of the Navy's common funds to aid his secret capture, or more like departure, from the country. Former Lieutenant Commander Hettiarachchi had been issued open warrants at that time over abetting in the abduction and forced disappearance of 11 youths in Colombo. Now, Sri Lankans have always been protective of the country's traditions and have been swift to dismiss any attempts to cheapen their importance. With the country's values and culture dating back millennia, they are fiercely protected. We came across an incident where two foreigners who allegedly behaved indecently while being clad in traditional Kandyan attire in front of the Temple of the Tooth Relic. The reaction of the locals was as one would expect, swift. A group of locals in Kandy, along with the Basnayaka Nilame, or the guardian of the Alawatugoda Samandevalaya, Jayampati Hinkenda, protested against a group of foreigners dressed in traditional Kandyan attire who allegedly behaved in an indecent manner, disgracing the outfits. Subsequently, the Kandy police intervened and escorted the group of foreigners into a nearby hotel to ensure their safety. Reportedly, the group had been filming a documentary for a competition in Hungary. Guardian of the Alawatugoda Samandevalaya, Jayampati Hinkenda, stated that two male tourists, one dressed in traditional Nilame attire and the other in a distorted outfit similar to the traditional Kandyan outfit worn by women, behaved in a manner which disgraced the traditional outfits. Accordingly, he requested all the footage of the relevant scenes to be destroyed.
Just want to see the footage.
Yes, we can show. You see they are in the car, they are going to the lake now.
Yeah. This costume you bought from a shop or any...
They don't know anything about these clothes. Get it and wear it.
The group's local producer, Iranti Abesinghe, stated that they had acquired the necessary permission from the government institutions to film the activities, with the Ministry of Defence and the National Film Corporation giving their consent. She, however, said that if everyone, including the guardian of the Alawatugoda Samandevalaya, object to the filming, they are willing to destroy the footage. Hinkenda mentioned that they agreed to the deletion of the captured footage and that the film crew should certify that they had properly destroyed them. According to our reporter, the relevant scenes were deleted.
You can see this is completely empty and we destroyed all. It proves this is full black. We destroyed all the materials.
There is a new chairman at the Sampath Bank. Stay tuned to find out.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is AdaDerana 24.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Professor Malik Ranasinghe has been appointed as the chairman of the Sampath Bank with effect from yesterday. The appointment of Professor Ranasinghe, who was the deputy chairman of the bank since August 2016, follows the early resignation of former chairman Channa Palansurya on the 1st of April. Professor Ranasinghe is a former vice-chancellor of the University of Moratuwa, member of the University Grants Commission and independent non-executive director of a number of corporate boards. He obtained his PhD from the University of British Columbia, Vancouver of Canada in civil engineering economics as a Canadian Commonwealth scholar. chief of the International Monetary Fund warns that the global economy is in a delicate moment due to the widespread growth, slowdown and uncertainties such as Brexit and trade tensions between China and the United States. In an interview, IMF's Managing Director Christine Lagarde talked about trade tensions between China and the United States, discussing the impact of easing tensions and how the Eurozone can withstand the next crisis.
See 70% of our global economy slowing down compared with what we had anticipated a few months ago. So this is widely spread, and it's likely to improve in the course of 2019, where we see a little bit of an upswing to be expected. But it's delicate because there is a lot of uncertainty. There are country-specific issues that are unresolved, such as Brexit. And the largest uncertainty that we have is trade tension, which has really fueled this anxiety of economic operators around the world. We believe that some countries can actually afford to spend on infrastructure, on education, on broadband, and you name it. Other countries need to build or rebuild their buffers because their debt situation is of concern. And we also believe that all of them should continue the structural reforms that some of them have started, but need to continue. So to be crisis resistant, work needs to be continued.
And now to bring you a market update, the all-share price index ended 0.34% higher at 5,597.37 today, its highest close since the 18th of March. Today's market turnover was 405.2 million rupees, less than this year's daily average of 640.2 million rupees. Foreign investors bought a net 205.7 million rupees worth of shares, but they have been net sellers of 5.5 billion rupees worth of equities so far this year. Let's now cross over to Nisansala Kurupumudali from First Capital Holdings for a detailed report.
In the bond market, the secondary market yield curve witnessed a downward shift across the yield curve following today's bill auction, which further propelled the positive sentiment prevailed in the market. Post-bill auction, the one-year bill witnessed a significant dip and traded in the range of 9.95 and 10.05% levels. Noteworthy, the liquidity position was seen turning positive to record rupees 16.64 billion after a lapse of near 6 months.
Now, the Sri Lankan Rupee snapped a 6-session winning streak to end lower today due to imported dollar demand, but greenback inflows from inward remittances ahead of the traditional New Year capped further decline. The currency edged down at 176 rupees and 37 cents against the US dollar, which gained 2.1% in the last 6 sessions through Tuesday and 4.6% so far this year. Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan Rupee traded against other major currencies around the globe. We'll take a look at news from overseas on the other side of this break, so stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is AdaDerana 24.
Welcome back. It's Brexit time. Now, Theresa May is set to meet Jeremy Corbyn to see whether there is common ground to break the Brexit deadlock. Announcing the move, Brexit Secretary Stephen Barclay said the remorseless logic of MP numbers in the House of Commons meant the UK was heading for an undesirable soft Brexit. He said that there were no preconditions for the talks, but it was not a blank cheque either. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn says he wants a customs union and workers' rights to be prioritised. The PM's move to hold talks has angered some Brexiteers, including Tory Boris Johnson, who has accused May of entrusting the final handling of Brexit to Labour.
It's very disappointing that the Brexit process has now been entrusted to Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, and I think that the result will almost certainly be, if Corbyn gets his way, that we remain in the customs union so that we can't control our trade policy, the huge areas of lawmaking we can't control, and Brexit is becoming soft to the point of disintegration. This really doesn't qualify because you don't take back control of your laws and you can't do free trade deals if you remain in the customs union. This approach cannot endure. You cannot expect the 5th biggest economy in the world to come out of the EU and remain run by the EU.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron urged Britain to come up with a plan to break the Brexit deadlock before a summit in Brussels next week, or risk slipping automatically towards a disorderly exit from the European Union. Speaking ahead of talks with the Irish Prime Minister yesterday, Macron said whether that alternative plan involved a snap election, a referendum, or a customs union was for Britain to decide. The Irish PM, on the other hand, noted that European leaders need to be open to any credible proposals that Britain's Theresa May puts forward. Moving on from UK to the United States, the city of Chicago has made history by electing Lori Lightfoot, a political newcomer and an African-American woman, as its mayor for the first time. Lightfoot defeated opponent Tony Peckwinkle, who is also African-American, by a landslide in a runoff to take over a city struggling with crime and weak finances. The 56-year-old will also become the first openly gay mayor of the 3rd largest US city. According to the Reflective Democracy campaign, the runoff between two African-American women, that is, was in part a rarity in the United States, where only 6% of mayors in the 200 largest US cities are women of color.
But our differences are not
Time for sports, and it is Formula One. Now, Mick Schumacher, son of 7-time world champion Michael, made his Formula One test debut for Ferrari in Bahrain yesterday and lapped second fastest behind Red Bull's Max Verstappen on a surprisingly wet day at the same track where his father won the first Grand Prix in the Middle East with Ferrari 15 years ago. Schumacher was 0.597 seconds slower than 21-year-old Dutchman. Now, the 20-year-old German, who is also the reigning European F3 champion, will also test with the Ferrari-powered Alfa Romeo team, which is formerly Sauber, tomorrow.
Well, emotions, I can tell you, it was nice. It was really feeling like home already. It was beautiful to make those first laps, and obviously seeing all the guys working with the car and working with me. So I felt very comfortable. I felt like home. I want to arrive into F1 being a complete racing driver, being as prepared as possible, and I think time will tell if that's next year, if that's the years to follow, really. So I'm taking a step after the...
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.